Hey, Lee and Louise here. I have the pre-cuts that I just finished cutting in the last video. And if you remember, I had 12 fat quarters and 8 1-yard pieces of assorted Christmas fabrics. And look what I have. I was able to get 2 layer cakes plus extra squares, 4 charm packs plus extra squares, because I think I ended up with like 44 to 46 on these. And then I had lots of extra strips. I didn't specifically cut 2.5-inch strips because I didn't know if I wanted to use something with these. So I'm saving that until I get to the end. And then I had a piece of each of the 8 yardage pieces that are 6.5 by width of fabric. So that can be used as a center square, that can be used as jelly rolls, it can be used as charms. So this is my piece that I'm using in case I change my mind along the way or decide that there's something I absolutely have to do. So I like to keep my options open. I got my basics. These are what I use. And then this is what I'll use as backup. And then look, 11 yards, this was the extent of my my scraps. Oh, of course, and there were these guys, you know, my rope wrap. And I'm going to show you that. I'm going to get that rope. If you remember in my hurricane house video, I showed you the clothesline we made in the backyard with the fallen tree. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad those days are over. All right, moving on. Stay on task and stay on point because we're here to make some quilts and make them in a hurry. And I am going to focus on 1 layer cake. Here's a quick peek of the finished quilt, and I absolutely love it. And I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun to make, even though it made me laugh a few times at the silliness I went through getting it all together. But it really is wonderful, and it's easy, and it's a day's quilt. It's easy to do that quick. And I enjoyed it so much I made a pattern because I want to do this a number of different ways. And so I'm just giving you a quick peek at the pattern cover page, but there's also a layout page in there and a fat quarter conversion chart. So you can look at there's 3 different pages of the way you can cut out your layer cakes and pre-cuts from your fabric. So all this is included in the pattern, and of course it's on sale for a fantastic price, but I just wanted to let you know it's available. So let's get watching and see. There's a lot more to come. I'm anxious to hear what you think about this quilt. With 1 layer cake, we can make an entire quilt that's going to run about, I think it's 60 by 65 inches, give or take. So we'll have 42 squares that'll measure, I think it's 9 inches, I believe, where we are. 9.5 inches finishes at 9. And so with that, I need to do some pairing up. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do, because I have my batiks on top, is I want to mix those in. We want to kind of look at lights and darks. Now, I have 4 of the same on my yardage. As I cut my yardage, I doubled the fabric and just sewed it in that order, or excuse me, cut it in that order. And that worked out really well because then I had all these pieces stacked together ready to go. But now what I want to do is look at my lights and darks. And this is how I'm going to piece my my blocks, because I want contrast. And let's see, this is going to go in the light pile. So I want to separate my fabrics, and then I'm going to pair them up. And you know, there's a couple different ways we can do this, and I haven't quite exactly decided how. Now, how I'm deciding, light background is going to go in my light pile. A light background with a lot of darker prints, I'm going to call those mediums. And so I'm going to put that in the middle. And until I get my piles completely sorted through, I'm not going to really know how many of each I'll have. So I have my darks. These are lighter because it has the light background. I just thought this was a fun collage print with a Christmas tree and just, you know, some really fun holiday. But yet it looks a bit retro antique-ish, you know. I thought it was fun. Now this definitely is going to be in the dark pile. And we're just going to match our pieces up Okay, now these I have one of each, and I'm going to say this will be a dark and a dark. That's probably a medium, won't you think? So when I get this all completed, then I'm going to start pairing them up, and we have to decide how to cut them. And the difficulty for me is there's a simple way of doing it. And we're going to do just double cut. Cut once, cut twice, and then sew it all together and come up with a beautiful pattern. But there's different ways that you can cut them, and that's what I'm not exactly sold on which way I'm going to go. I have them divided into light, medium, and dark. And I'm going to start with my lights, I think, because these will mix with these easily. I want to make sure I get some good contrast on these. And so I'm kind of thinking things that are going to be difficult to match up with something else that I want to make sure I have variety with. So I definitely want one of these trees to go here. And so here's my dilemma. I'm looking at whether I want to do 2 colors per block or 4. And you know what? This is an easy quilt. We're going with 2 colors. I just made that decision. Okay, we're going with 2. So we're just going to pair up our fabrics. And in doing this, see now, I don't want to use the same red with this. I want to be able to mix it up and get some different colors in here. So I'll mix this here. And then with this one, I'll go with something a bit lighter. So I'll put this one in. So you kind of see where I'm going. So I'm going to go through these and then come up with some plans. And then once I get that together, I'm going to show you how we will cut this and then sew it. So let me go ahead and do this quickly, and we'll see just where we're going to come out. I have all my layer cakes paired up the way I want them, so I have good contrast. And I actually ended up with the an extra pair because I did have 44 in here and I only need 42. So I'm just going to set these aside with the rest of my pre-cuts. All those fabrics match. They'll work in another situation, so I've got that ready to go. At this point, again, I'm going quick and fast and easy. There are a number of ways, different ways that you can do this, but I am going to double up on some of my pairs here, and I'm going to put them down one at a time, just so I make sure they're nice and square. And I'll probably go eight layers. And let's see, so that's 6, and then 7 and 8. And what I'm going to do is cut these and come back and sew them. Here we go. So I have my block, my 10-inch squares, and what I'm going to do is cut them at 6 inches. And again, this is a number you can choose depending on your preference. I like the idea of having a 6-inch, let's see, here's 4, and here's 4 inches up there. So here we have a nice 6-inch square. It's big enough that that fabric will stand out and create some interest throughout the quilt, but it's not so big that there's too much of any one print. Now, if you were fussy cutting or had large prints or florals or something that you really wanted to make larger, then you just make this square bigger and cut narrower strips. You can do whatever you want here, but I'm going scrappy. I want to be able to see all the fabrics. I want them all to play an important part in my quilt. And so I am just going to cut this here and cut on the 4. So we've got 6 and 4. And I'm going to cut down the middle. So as I'm cutting these, I'm going to just set them aside. See, there I go. When I talk and I cut, I don't push. I take a pause to breathe, and I obviously let up on my cutting. I think that's funny because I do that all the time. But only when I'm talking, not when I'm doing it myself. Okay, enough of that. We have to stay on track because we have to get these quilts finished for Christmas. So I think I'm at about, what, number 6 here? And we'll do one more to get our 8. Now, here's the other thing. Even if these are not exactly cut the same, if one's maybe a little bit more or less, like 1/8 of an inch, even 1/4 of an inch, it's not going to be noticeable. It's not going to be a problem. We're just kind of, going to create a interesting look. And I'm going to take this one. Now, the other thing you can do is just randomly grab your pieces. I want to make sure that I'm getting contrast. And I'm kind of fussy about that because I think your fabrics stand out better when there's some contrast in there. If everything, you get too many of these same colors or same white backgrounds and not enough of the dark backgrounds in there, then you are going to have kind of some muddy areas or muddled areas that don't really stand out. And I want this to really be a dominant, fabric throughout the quilt. I want it to be visible and seen and not just blend in. Okay, I'm getting down here. So what I'm going to do is get these sewn, and I'm going to put these pieces together, but I'm going to kind of crisscross them. And I'll show you here in just a minute how I'll do that. With everything cut, it's time to start sewing. Now, I paired these up in a way that I liked particularly. So I'm going to sew these together crisscross. Basically, I'm going to take this one and put it there and this one here. So I'm going to put this piece in my sewing machine. I'll put this piece next to it, and I am going to keep them in the same direction. That may not be critical necessarily, but just because I want it to look that way, I'm going to pay attention to direction. But we are going to turn these around. I think I just like the idea of both of them side by side, that they go in the same direction. So I'm going to sew this with a 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to sew this with a 1/4 inch seam, and I'm going to do the same throughout all these pieces. So I will then have a total of 42 pairs sewn together. So let me go ahead and get started on this, and I'll show you what that's going to look like. With all my blocks pieced together with a large and a narrow strip, I'm now going to cut them one time. So we cut them once, and we sewed and pressed. And I just press it to the short side. Lay it on my ironing board and just press it up like that. That's the quickest way. And there's no right or wrong simply because of the way this goes together. It's okay whichever way the seams go. And midway, if you decide there's some seams going in a different direction than you want, just flip them over and sew them, and then, press it after and it'll be fine. So there's not a lot of critical detail in this, which makes it a wonderful quilt. So I lay them out and I stagger them so that the seam doesn't fall in the same place. And that way, when I'm cutting across, I can cut through multiple blocks. So I have it straight here. I have it straight on the bottom. and I cut this 4 and 6, I'm also going to cut this 4 and 6. Now, if you want, you can certainly change this. You can cut it in half, so it's 5 and 5, and it becomes sort of a asymmetrical 4 patch, which would be nice. Or you can cut it back down to 3 inches, so you have the narrow strip, which is perfect if you want to play off on one of your fabrics that maybe has a image you really want to show, or you have a constant fabric throughout the quilt that you want to showcase. So I'm going with the 4 and 6 inches, and I'm going to keep that consistent. And so this is what I have. Now, I've done some others already. So here's my 4 inches, and here's my 6 inches. Now what I'm going to do is begin sewing, and I'm going to just flip this over. Now, obviously, I am going to make sure that as I'm sewing, these aren't the same fabrics. I'm also going to make sure that there's enough contrast. But notice, if I flip this over, it's the same direction. So I'm going to also spin this. That way, when I go to grab it, I'm not going to have any issues of picking it up and then putting it in the wrong way. If I just pick this up here and here, I'm good to go, and I'm going to sew down. And then we have our block. That is just such a simple way to do this. And obviously you can do it on either side, but I would stay consistent on one side, because that way when you're laying your blocks out, you're going to twist and turn them. And if you have a couple going in a different direction, it might get a little fussy to kind of get things going in a similar way. Unless it's completely scrappy and you switch them all and you change your widths throughout, then you can get away with it. That would make it really easy to do. So now what I'm going to do is get some of these sewn, and then our blocks are finished. How easy is this? Oh my goodness, this is going together so quickly. This is definitely a quilt in a day. This is going so fast. I love it. Of course, the secret, we had our pre-cuts. You can cut as you go, as you need them, but if you have a stash of pre-cuts set aside, you're ready to quilt, quilt, quilt. Get the cutting done, and then get to your sewing. It's sort of like what they call the production line in manufacturing. When you do the same thing, you get faster at it. Then you switch to something else and your speed picks up as well. So these are just things to kind of push through when you need to get things done in a hurry, as opposed to the other times of year when you do it to relax. And then that's a little different. So it just depends on your circumstances. And right now, I'm pretty much in a hurry. So let me go ahead and get this together, and I'll show you what comes next. Well, I now have 42 blocks, and I think they look wonderful. I just love the look of this as it's laid out with all the different colors and the prints and the textures of the graphics in here. I think this is going to be a great quilt. Now, the interesting part is going to be the layout. And, you know, my idea was to keep this, what do I want to say, this large block in the upper corner like this, but then these, of course, line up, and we don't want seams to match. We want non-matching seams to make life easy. So if we go, this one's up and this one's up, then this one's down and this one's down, our seams don't match here. And same thing, we have up here and up here, but now look, when they come together, they're matching on this side. So what I think I've come up with is doing it this way. Instead of having a consistent back and forth, so to speak, I am doing an extra turn, which I think could work. So let's see, we have these two here and these two there, and this all works right along here. And then these two here and here. Oh, but look, see, we have this one. So we're lining up there, so that's not going to work. Oh my goodness, I did not think this was going to be quite the challenge. All right, we can't go that way. We could go this way. And let's see, so these two together, but see the problem is when I repeat this block like this and put it here, oh no, that's not a problem. That works okay because there's no matching seams there. All right, so let's repeat this row, but go offset one. So where this is up, we want this one to be up. Where this is down, we want this one to be down. Okay, well, that's got to go up this way. There we go. Okay, so this is up this way, and this is this way. So this will be up this way, as is this one. And then this one's going to come down this way. All right, I think we might have something that's going to work here. So see how it's up and down. And then we get a nice row here, which I like that. I like that, where we've got, just some nice strips going. Okay, here and here. And so this one's going to come in, and this one's going to come down, just like this one. So where's my other one? Here. And then this goes here. All right, something's not working. So this one goes here. Okay. I'm losing it. I can't find my blocks. Okay, so we have this one up and this one down right there. So right below this one, I want here. Okay, that's why, because this one's going to turn that way. Oh, look at that. What are the chances I get the ones that actually go together? That's pretty amazing. Okay, so I don't see any joining seams that we have to fuss with. And so, okay, so here's the trick. So we have to give it an extra twist. So these are going to be a little bit offset, but that's kind of fun to have the big pieces sort of together. It kind of creates some interest there. I think I might want to put this one here. Right, that one there, even though it was fun that those two matched. Okay, what do I have to do here? This has to go like this. Wow, I'm going to draw a map to put this together. There we go. Okay, so 1 and 2, and then 1 and 2 here, 1 and 2 here, and then we have 2 rows of verticals, and everything is offset. Oh, I think we've got this. So now I need to take a picture of this, and then I can have it on my phone next to my machine to make sure I'm doing this the right way. Now I'm going to have 6 blocks in one direction and 7 in the other. So I'm going to do this in rows, and this will be pretty easy to do. And so it's going to be an up and a down, then a down. Okay. So what I'll be doing is just sewing my row this way. And of course I can sew it this way. Oh my gosh. Do you ever lay something out that's, a pattern like this? You kind of get your mind wrapped around it, and then you turn 90 degrees and look at it and think, oh dear God, I can't figure out what's happening. So it's just that we're not seeing these. Okay, so they're joining up in a different place, but they are joining up here, these big ones. All right, well, I'm going to go see what I can do to figure out how to get this to my machine and know how to sew it. But I'm going to take a break for a while. It's late, and I haven't had dinner yet. So let's ponder on this, and we will move forward either later, maybe tomorrow. But in the meantime, I love the quilt blocks. I think it's going to be a wonderful quilt. And, it's all the festive prints. They're fabulous. All right, so here we go. Thanks for hanging in here. My goodness, this has been quite the ordeal. What an amazing difference a break and a good night's sleep can make. I'm thinking clearly now. I got so confused when I was putting this together last night. So we found out that this works wonderful with the block up and the block down, and they're overlapping just a little bit. And the beauty is that we have no matching seam, so it's going to sew together quickly. Now, here's one sewn together, up and down, but I cannot repeat that here. Remember, we had to offset it by 1, and then our blocks go diagonally. So then what I do is I'm going to have a row of 6, and my next row of 6 cannot start with the same direction. Instead, what I'll do is take one like this. So what you can see is my blocks have been divided into 2 piles, dark squares and small, okay, well, maybe not quite enough sleep. Dark squares and light squares, and there'll be 21 in each pile. And this is just going to make it easier for you to grab what it is that you need. And so what I've done here is just alternate a block every other row. Row 1, we're going to have 6 across, starting with an up. And row 2, we're going to have 6 across, but we're going to start with a down. So these are the official terms. This is the up and this is the down. And each row will have 6 blocks. We're going to make 7 blocks, or excuse me, we're going to make 7 rows, each with 6 blocks, and that's it. So all you have to do is lay your blocks like this. And when you go to start your row, you're going to put these 2 together, but then the next row will start over here. Now, the light and dark pile is optional. I just think that I'm going to be better at getting a good blend or a good alternation in colors, so not everything is close together. And that's the only reason that I do that. And that's optional for you because I have a lot of repetitive fabrics. And if you're going completely scrappy, then you don't have to worry about it. If you're going with a specific color scheme that has fewer colors, then that's what you want. You want some repetitive nature so those colors come together. So it's all about what your specific quilt is going to be. I probably took the long way about getting here, but I think it's probably not a bad thing to see how to come up with a way to lay your blocks out, especially if you come up with something that maybe you just put together and said, okay, how can I make this become a quilt? How can I put all these blocks together in an interesting way? And in a way that it's not always just going to be repeat, 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 and actually get something that creates an additional pattern. So now we're going to have these diagonal squares go across the quilt, and I think that's going to be wonderful. So already I have 4 rows, the top 4 rows of this quilt finished, and it's 6 blocks wide, and it's going to be 7 rows long. So these are the top 4, and I have the other 3 to show you because what I did is I chain pieced, and I sewed all my rows together, and then I've come back and sew across. And I just wanted you to see just how wonderful all these prints go together, how fun this looks. And it's so simple. You see just, the single block right here. And by varying the sizes of the blocks individually, instead of just doing a 4-patch, this is more like an asymmetrical 4-patch, you just get a totally different look. And then playing with the placement. Now, I did go to a lot of extra trouble figuring out a way that I could place it, but I love the fact that, here we go, that these large squares all follow in a diagonal pattern. Now, think of this as a scrappy quilt, and which this is, but if you were specific to color, and each of these, let's say, were just green or just red, or alternate red rows and green rows, it would take a little more time putting it together because you have to get those rows lined up, but it wouldn't be that difficult at all. I think that would be a fun layout too. Or seasonally, if you're doing, anything for a particular event or occasion or somebody's favorite color, this is something you could use a lot. I really like the way this is turning out. Okay, now this is how it went together. So I went ahead and started with my first 2, and I sewed them together, and then I joined the next row Get all these in here, trying to show you on the camera here. Here we are. So we sewed 2, and then we joined the next ones all the way across, and you can see down here where the pieces, oops, there I got 2 colors the same together, but you know, that's okay. I know there's a couple other spots too. It just makes that color stand out in that spot, which I think is kind of fun. And so this is it. I'm going to finish sewing these across, add it to the quilt, and it's complete. This is such an easy quilt to put together. It's fast. And you saw with the layout, there are some very simple layouts by putting them all in the same position, in the same orientation, and running that through, or just mixing it up as you go. And it doesn't have to be a specific pattern or a specific direction. Just, you know, put them together. It can be such a wonderful scrappy quilt in so many different ways. And the fact that it's quick and easy just makes it such a treat to deal with, and I cannot wait to see this finished. So now I'm going to put these together, and I'm going to sew, and I'll nest my seams so they go this way. Let me show you the back of the quilt here for a minute so you can see just how it's all coming together here. So you see the seams are nested in each direction for each of the blocks, and then I press the long seams all in one direction, and I generally go from top to bottom. And I just really, I'm so pleased with how well it goes together. I mean, when it looks great on the back, you know it's an easy quilt because it's just straightforward and straight stitching, and the only seams we have to worry about are in the corner. And with all that's going on, if you're off even up to 1/4 of an inch, it's not going to be that visible. So this is very forgiving. I hope you've liked this. This has been a lot of fun. Now, let me go ahead and get it finished, and I'll get some pictures for you. I love how this turned out. And you know what I get excited about the most is this diagonal pattern that carries through. And what's amazing to me is you don't even notice it. But how wonderful would that be to do all in a single color? And it would look like a garland going back and forth across the quilt. I just think it's just so charming. And remember, I've got that pattern on sale. If you love this as much as me, I think you'll have a lot of fun making it. I sure appreciate you being here today, and thank you for getting through the video and sticking with me to the end. And I'm just really excited about my holiday quilting. I've been away from quilting for a couple months, and it just feels so good to be back. And it's wonderful to have you joining me and sharing my quilts. So you all have a fantastic rest of your day. It is such a pleasure for me to be here with you. Thank you so much, and Merry Christmas. Have fun getting all your shopping done.